Hi, fifth grade. Today we are going to do lesson 14.5, Understanding and Measuring Volume. By the end of this lesson, you will be able to find the volumes of cubes and rectangular prisms, find the volume of a solid constructed from unit cubes, and compare volumes of cubes, rectangular prisms, and other objects. What is volume, you ask? Volume is the amount of space occupied by a solid or the amount of space an object takes up. So for example, the inside of this cardboard box would be its volume. Now, how do we measure that volume? Volume is measured in cubic units. Unlike area, we're going to compare the two, unlike area, which is measured in square units. Okay, let's take a look at a few objects and compare the volume. For number 2, I have a lovely gift box and a cardboard box. The cardboard box has greater volume, and we know that because it takes up more space. Number 3, the basketball has greater volume than the can because it takes up more space. Okay, what is the difference between area and volume? Well, area has two measurements. It measures its length and its width, and it's measured in square units, as I said before. So, for example, at the bottom of this, I said area measures length and width. It is measured in square units. For example, centimeters squared. Now, volume, on the other hand, is measured in 3 measurements: length, width, and height. And it's measured in cubic units. Okay, let's find the volumes of cubes and rectangular prisms using cubic units. So I'm going to look at this cube here, and I'm going to start measuring it by first looking at the first layer, and I can count the number of cubes. There are 1, 2, 3, 4 cubes. And the second layer, there are 5, 6, 7, 8 cubes. So this cube is made up of 8 unit cubes, and that means its volume is 8 cubic units. Take a moment and tell me what the volume in cubic units is of this rectangular prism. So if you went ahead and counted the number of cubes, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. You know that there are 12 cubic units. So the volume is 12 units cubed. Another way I can do that is, remember, I can multiply the length and the width again to get 12 cubic units. All right, now we're going to practice some of these. For number 4, I'm going to look at this cube, and in order to measure it, I'm going to first look at the first layer. So let's count the first layer. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 cubic units in my length, and my width is 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's 4 times 4, and I have 16. Oh, that did not let me do that. 16 units cubed. And I apologize. I'm going to X this out for a moment. Give me a second. And now I think I can, it's not as big, but I can move these around now. So that is 16 unit cubes. However, that's just the first layer. There are a total of 4 layers. So I have to multiply that first layer times 4 to get a total of 64 unit cubes. So that means the volume of this solid is 64 cubic units. Okay, let's do the same. I'm going to present this so it's bigger. And I want you to take a moment and go ahead and figure out what the volume of number 5, the prism for number 5 is. Okay, and I'm going to make it a little bit smaller so I can move these boxes around. So the first layer I'm going to count. I know in the front I have 1, 2, 3, 4 cubes, and my width on the side I have 4 cubes as well. So again, that is 16 unit cubes. And this time I have 2 layers, so I have to multiply my 16 unit cubes, my first layer, times my second layer to get a total of, and I did that wrong. That should say 32. Let's go back and erase that. My bad. 32 unit cubes. And so my volume of the prism is 32 cubic units. Okay, moving on. Let's look at this solid. It's not in a rectangle or a square, but I can still measure the volume by counting the cubic squares or cubic units. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So this solid is, the volume is 10 cubic units. And here's a picture. They broke this apart, counted the first 3 rows, and then the top layer. Okay, let's look at the next solids. Take a moment and figure out the volume for number 6 and number 7, and then we'll go ahead and correct it. Okay, number 6, I know I can count the cubic units to determine what the volume of this solid is. So I have 3, 6, 7, 8. The volume of solid number 6 is 8 cubic units. For number 7, if I count my cubic units, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So the volume of this solid is 9 cubic units. Okay, now we're going to compare the volume of different solids. And we're going to use certain vocabulary. We're going to use the word lesser, same, and greater. So let's go ahead and read these sentences and see how those are used in each sentence. The cube or solid has a lesser volume than the rectangular prism. The cube has the same volume as the solid. And finally, the rectangular prism has a greater volume than the cube or the solid. Okay, so I'm going to give you a minute to work on the guided learning for 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. The directions are, you are first to figure out what the volume is for solid A, solid B, solid C, and then using less than, greater than, or the same, you're going to compare 11, 12, and 13. And you can pause the video, and when you're done, you can continue on with the video. Okay, so for number 8, the volume in, I'm going to do this again. The volume of solid A is 36 cubic units. The volume of solid B is 21 cubic units. And the volume of solid C is 10 cubic units. So let's go ahead and compare them. Number 11 says A has a greater volume than B, and I know that because A is 36 cubic units and B is 21 cubic units. Number 12, B has a greater volume than C, and I know that because B has 21 cubic units and solid C has 10 cubic units. And number 13, C has a lesser volume than A. And I know that because C has 10 cubic units and A has 36 cubic units. Okay, that ends today's lesson. Your homework is to do journal pages, practice 5 pages 201. This is 201 and this is 202, numbers 1 through 10. And I have copied the link for you to put your answers in a Google form. So like last week, you are going to do your work in your journal and then transfer those answers into the Google form. And not to worry, there shouldn't be any glitches this time. It should be all worked out. But please send me an email if you are having trouble with it. Thank you.